Hello, everybody. I am very, very, very excited. Just today, we have with us Linda Ty, who I'm sure is a name very familiar to you. She is a therapist, speaker, and expert on trauma, and someone I love to talk to. So, so, uh, but I'm trying to remember. I think we first met. I was back, was it in at Steve Porges Polyvagal Conference, perhaps?
That is correct. Gee, you have a great memory, Janina. I'm sitting here trying to go through the catalogue of memories and experiences, wondering
Oh,
because
really?
yeah, I think that was our first meeting in person. It was November 2021 or 22?
Probably 22.
22, yes.
Yeah. And I remember because we were sitting outside next to the beach
Mhm.
and a group of us and drinking champagne and just having a wonderful time.
Yes, yes. And I'm going to admit that I was just so overwhelmed. It was Janina, my reality as a as as a former child refugee into Australia and as an immigrant into the United States as an adult and someone who lives in Alaska, which is very far away from the East Coast and the West Coast where all the action happens. But my reality is that the very first conference that I attended in person was because I was invited to be a speaker.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like I couldn't afford to attend a conference in person. Right. And so here I am, just so incredibly overwhelmed um, at being at an in-person conference that I would never have been able to afford to go to at that point in time in my life, even. And so the layers of imposter syndrome were just through the roof. And then there's like Janina Fisher, who's like sitting right there.
Not that Janina Fisher hasn't had her own imposter syndrome. Yeah, you
You
know,
too?
oh, absolutely. Not now, but back at
Mm.
the beginning. I mean, I felt like an imposter as a therapist. I remember the first time I accepted money from a client for a therapy session. I felt like I should give it back because because the client didn't know that it was my first session and I really hadn't a clue.
Oh, oh.
So, and those big conferences are are very intimidating. Now it helps that we have so many friends who are speakers. We can go and see our friends, but still there are like 1,000 people there who we've never met.
Mhm.
In addition to
And
our
yes, yes, there are a thousand new friends to make, and yet they're also the friends that we want to actually see. And and somewhere in all of that, for me anyway, with where I've entered into the whole speaking field, there is this mental health speaker celebrity industrial complex, right? Which I don't know if that was a thing for you when you started on the speaking circuit or got invited to speak at conferences. However, there's also that dynamic there for me,
right.
and that adds into the whole overwhelm of it all.
And oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, so, I always felt, I'm thinking especially of the Psychotherapy Networker Conference because there was a celebrity industrial complex, and then there was me.
Can we just pause there, Janina? Because I can't imagine a time when you weren't well known for who you are and the work that you put out into the world.
Well, we always start somewhere where we weren't
Yeah.
known. But
I forget that about you. And in this moment, I'm recognizing the ways in which personhood gets taken away when we regard each other as, you know, the as people that we see on stage.
Right, right, exactly. And I still find myself really having a hard time believing that people see me as an expert, as one of the people who are meant to be there, as opposed to the people who kind of snuck in and got to do a workshop. So, the one thing that did help me is I've known Bessel for 50 years, for 52 years, I think to be exact. Probably older than you are.
Yes.
And we knew each other socially first. Uh, and so I, you know, I think that helped me to feel a little more like I belonged.
Mm.
And also, and you and I have this in common, we have always had a mission that wasn't to be part of the celebrity industrial complex, but it was a mission that was about what we cared about, what we had a passion about,
Mm.
what we wanted people to know about.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's really, I mean, I feel like that's what saved me and made it all possible.
Mm. You know, Janina, there are a few things that are emerging for me in this conversation. And the first one is just letting go of the should that this imposter syndrome thing will actually ever go away. Like, thank you. Like, thank you. Because I have this thing that one day the imposter syndrome will go away and then I will feel, you know, fill in the blank, right? Like not anxious, accepted. Yeah, that the world is that I belong, you know, and it's like it I can be okay that it won't ever go, that part will always be there.
Right, right. Because
Yeah.
I think if we start out in life not feeling at a gut level, I belong, then it's not, it's obviously not a feeling we accrue through experience, right? You either have it or you don't. And I can see that the refugee experience would make it very, very, very hard to
Mhm.
feel a sense of belonging and sort of meant to be here. And I have a place here and it's mine.
Mm. You know, Janina, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. It's taken me years to unpack. And I once heard a poet whose name I can't remember say that a refugee is somebody that nobody wants.
Mm.
And so it's more than the family of origin stuff. It's the pervasive messages and messaging offered at the collective, systemic, structural, institutional, historical levels. Yeah.
And certainly in the US, that's a feeling that's getting stronger and stronger.
Mhm.
Because now it's, oh, if you're a refugee, you will be punished. You won't just be marginalized. You'll actually be sought out and punished.
And the words that come to me as you say that are that you will be hunted down.
Yeah.
Mm, mm. I think that's why it makes it so hard for people to orient towards, and at the same time, people who have an awareness of how horrific that experience is are actually stepping up and in and helping. And that, like, I'm getting emotional right now because that is also a new experience for me to be exposed to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's that's the really the kind of, I don't want to say bright side, but it's like it's it's something. I don't think that people with privilege um really recognize how powerful it is to actually to care and fight for refugees.
I'm just going to take a few breaths with you right now.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And oh, I mean, this is clinical and it's also personal, right? I don't think in therapy we talk often enough about the core wound of humiliation.
Right.
Yeah. Like we talk about shame, we talk about self loathing, we talk about the harsh inner critic, we talk about all the survival strategies and defenses.
Right.
And somewhere in that, in the collective experience of being othered, is the core wound of humiliation.
Right. Right.
Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's so um what I think what's so special about the work you've done is how personal it is, and and how and how much you give of yourself.
I'm just going to pause again. Oh my God, Janina, I didn't expect to cry.
I'm sorry. I told you this would be a chat. And
Yeah, the thing, like we've both done a gazillion podcast interviews, and then, a colleague, a friend invites you on and says, "Oh, we're just going to have a fireside conversation." Um, and yet I want to thank you for bringing this up because there has been such an unspoken rule in our field about not bringing the personal into the clinical, not bringing it into on stage conversations at these, really quite these psychotherapy conferences that are the epicenter of the gathering of so many esteemed individuals, right? That there is this unspoken rule of don't bring the personal in, don't self-disclose, don't share from your own experiences. And so to hear you say this, like to recognize that there is a shift and that shift is welcomed,
yeah.
it means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, and I really think it's your magic. It's what people respond to because they've had, depending on how long their careers have gone on, they've had hundreds of, brilliant lectures, but they haven't had the heart and soul that you bring in to your when you speak. And it's it's wonderful because it gives so much meaning to what you talk about.
Thank you, and I am I am so impressed by how you also bring your heart and soul into how you teach and what you teach without any self-disclosure.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. And so I think in many ways, um, we're inhabiting the fullness of the expression of what is possible for our field.
Right, right. Yeah.
Mm.
And I would say I am more self-disclosive in these past few years, sort of the older I get, um, because I feel like it doesn't matter anymore. Right? It's like when you grow old, you shall wear purple. Uh, you know, at this point, I can break the rules that I was taught about being very formal.
Yes. Yes. Janina, do you ever feel the constraints of the personhood that's taken away when we're put up on pedestals?
Yes, I feel, you know, I think what I feel is, um, yes, it's like, I mean, on the one hand, I appreciate all the lovely people who come up and thank us and say they have been touched by our work. But I do feel, I think it's hard to, there's a loss of boundary that's hard, right? And and you know, it's almost as if um by being who we are, um, we've given up some right to a boundary. And I remember during the pandemic, I remember I had to keep asking people, if you're going to approach me to ask me a question or say hello, please put your mask on before you approach me. And and people were just walking up to me with no mask. And I was freaking out.
I'm assuming by that you mean that people would come up in rampant fangirl mode
Yes.
and
Yeah, exactly. I just keep trying to remember
Mm,
why I set out to do this. Yeah, and really it's the mission. And so if the mission entails that I have fans and they're excited about these ideas, that's wonderful. And I can deal with the discomfort of, more selfies. Um, it's funny. I don't know about you, but I've always hated having my picture taken.
mhm,
Now we live in the age of selfies.
mm. I started taking selfies, I think 3 years ago. And in the process of doing it, it was like exposure therapy for me to get closer to why I dislike having my photo taken so much. And the words that kept coming up for me were, I'm being captured. Like in a photo, which is like akin to I'm being hunted, right? I'm being captured. Yeah. And it's amazing uh, how much trauma lateralizes I'll speak for myself, into my own life without me even realizing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I feel that way about privilege. Like I I had no idea what privilege meant until I began learning what it meant not to have privilege. And then I was amazed at, at what all the non-conscious ways that privilege affects how we think, what we believe, what we do, how comfortable we are.
Would it be okay if I asked you how you came to that understanding of the privilege that you have?
I have to thank Deborah Chapman Finley and Lisaria Perez, who are one. I don't know if you've ever seen them. Do you know them?
I know Glyceria and I have met online Deborah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did a series on implicit bias. for the Academy of Therapy Wisdom. And I mean, it was really, it was such a process because there we're white, brown, and black, right? And and really looking at issues I'd never looked at. And right, and obviously that's not an environment in which you can say, well, you guys look at yourselves, I'm not looking at myself. And it was really and it was incredible. And we spent hours, we'd have one little hour and a half webinar. We would probably spend 8 hours talking through what these issues actually meant. And and sometimes it was very painful to realize that I'd had the freedom to not worry about so many things. But the other thing we're not supposed to talk about in if we're therapists and speakers, we're not supposed to talk about politics. But things have gotten so bad here. I've actually thought I can't leave the country and try to re-enter it because what if my citizenship is called into account?
Mm.
And and it's very clear because my family goes back to before the American Revolution that, that I'm probably okay, but it's made me scared that if I'm not wanted, they can just say sorry. And sorry is about the most benign thing that's getting said these days.
I hear you on that one, Janina. When I went to Oxford recently, I went with the very, 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 very real possibility that I might not be allowed back into the United States.
Right.
I have a green card. I don't have citizenship here.
Oh,
Yeah. And so I travel on my Australian passport, and I know that when I go through immigration that I line up in the line that says not citizen. However, I get to hand over my green card, right? And I every single time without fail, I see the immigration officers like their shoulders relax when they, because I hand over the Australian passport, they look at me and then they go on high alert, right? And then they see the US citizenship, sorry, the US green card, and then I speak in my Australian accent. So there's still layers of privilege that I have that I know that my community members don't have.
right.
And yet it's very, very, very real.
Yes.
Because I remember back in the days when I was traveling to Alaska a lot, when my partner and I were dating, yeah, and or trying to figure out if we were dating or not. and Right. And I would enter the US through various ports because I was trying to find the cheapest, airfare possible. And so I got to experience the vast difference in immigration culture within various airports.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Around
Absolutely.
around the United States. And that's something that sticks with me.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine. And probably certain airports you wouldn't arrive in again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Like I avoid New York flying in internationally, and I avoid Los Angeles.
Wow.
Mm,
I wouldn't have expected New York and Los Angeles.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
hmm Yeah. And Honolulu is my go-to. Yes. Um, yeah. And Seattle not far behind. Mm,
I can imagine. I can imagine.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is very real, right? The ways in which there are layers of wanting to engage politically, knowing how I feel about things, and yet there's a very real recognition of the current landscape here in the United States that can very much impact whether I'm allowed back into the country or not.
Right. Right.
Mm,
Absolutely.
mm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And and unfortunately, it's not it's not just a fear. It's there's a realistic possibility. It sounds like you are really thinking ahead about how do I do this safely?
You know, it's that piece about how trauma survivors create a series of future-oriented survival strategies that live in the present moment,
Right.
right? And since what is it now? Since the middle of 2024. Was it 20? No, what year are we at? 25. Yeah, since the middle of 2024, I have been carrying around my passport with me on my body just in case I need to leave.
Right.
Yeah, and I know I have the privilege of being able to leave, and yet there's this unshakable thing that says that I know in my bones, right, with the Vietnam War experience, that the people who left before the fall of Saigon, they had that their degree of traumatization in terms of severity is significantly less than those who left at the fall of Saigon, which is significantly less than those who left in the aftermath of communism and fled by boat over treacherous oceans and went through the refugee camp experiences. And yeah, and so there's that part of me that's like, you don't want to stay around for after the fall while you're scurrying to get out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I couldn't make that voice inside of me stop. I couldn't. And what satiated that voice was actually sitting down and actually making a plan, making a solid plan
Mhm.
for how I would leave.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it sounds irrational, but in in my lived experiences, it's not irrational. And
I
it
mean,
actually took me making that plan for that part of me to satiate. And now I'm staying. Right now I'm staying.
I mean that I actually think it's brilliant because one of my, one of my thoughts, which I think about a lot, is that we've been so focused on traumatic events that we forget about the effects. And one of the effects is that future apprehension of danger, which lives on in our bones. And I understand it's it's the brain and body are trying to protect us, but it does make life very difficult. And it's like the long arm of the trauma, ex it just extends decades into the future. So I think making a plan was brilliant.
Thanks for naming that, Janina. And I could also make a plan based on my strengths and learnings. And I know that my people survived because they found each other eventually. Like Vietnamese communities eventually thrived after they got connected to each other, right? After they found it. So it was, yes, there was a primary resettlement, but then there was a secondary resettlement where we found each other in the larger cities. And then we could help those who were coming after us.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah,
That's so, and I'm sure that was true in Australia.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so as my traumatized brain was making this plan, I also was able to tap into intergenerational resilience, right? Refugee resilience, about how we survived, and to then carry that with me, and to know that I also have that in the here and now, which means that I can have a more skillful relationship with the with that mind body relationship that is living tenuously in underneath the current political climate.
Right.
Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And does it, uh, I'm not sure that all of our listeners know that you live in the wilds of Alaska, where, where I don't think there's any immigration enforcement going on in the wilds of Alaska.
There actually have been, and so it's a both and, because there have been community members who have been hunted down, for lack of a better phrase, in this moment, given that my brain is a little bit. Um, yeah, and I have such a parallel process with Vietnam veterans, even
Uh,
though for a long time I could not orient towards the very real suffering under structural, institutional forces of oppression that military members, especially when there's forced conscription, have actually faced. And yet, there are so many Vietnam veterans living out in the woods at the end of the road in Alaska, just like myself.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And yet, their social engagement systems, just like mine, are still somewhat intact because they all have dogs for the most part, right? And dogs are where we started in amidst trying to heal from the wounds of society.
right.
Yeah.
It is so true that dogs dogs don't lose their social engagement system, and it's almost impossible not to respond to them.
Mhm. I actually find when my clients bring their dogs into the office, I can tell more about your attachment style
Oh, yeah.
than, yeah, than doing some sort of, attachment checklist in my mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm,
Yes, it's wonderful. And
yes.
I've had clients bring their dogs, and their nervous systems are totally different with the dog in the office.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, and I love bringing my dog into the office too. And one of my clients actually called me out and said that they noticed that my nervous system was more calm when my dog was in the
Oh,
office.
no.
And in that moment, I had that little, imposter syndrome freak out, and I just went, you know what? Yes, like yes, I'm right here with you. Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And is your office out in the wilds or is it in a
No,
city?
it's in downtown Fairbanks. And
Oh,
yet I have hopes one day of having an office out in, on 5 acres, 10 acres, somewhere a bit more remote, because there's something about being immersed in nature. There's something about big open windows where you can just look at trees and not see humans and houses and other structures. And there's also something about the somatic work that I do that gives rise to the the moving through of the silent scream of terror, as
mm,
well as the sacred outrage, the
right.
sacred outrage. And those things I will schedule clients on weekends when I know that other folks aren't in the office building. However, there's something that also shifts when we know that we're actually not we're not going to disturb anyone, and we like know that because we're in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And yet there is something for me about discovering Alaska and hunting and fishing and growing my own food that reconnected me to the cycles and the rhythms of the land. And as a trauma survivor, right, we like, and we know this from the research as well as from lived experience, that trauma disrupts your own rhythms and then disrupts interpersonal synchrony.
Right.
Yeah. And we're trying to help our clients get connected to their own rhythms in such a way that then repairs um, their ability to be in relationship in the world, right? That whole serve and return that gets disrupted. And yet, for me, and I've also noticed this amongst my client base, is that it takes 10 years of living out in nature around no humans. And yet there are pets, there are plants, there's the rhythms and the cycles of the seasons that we can rely upon. We can rely upon that then begins to repair something that we didn't realize was out of whack.
Right. Right.
And as therapists, we who may not have had these lived experiences, we then fail to recognize the intelligence of someone finding and forging their own path to healing. When we ask questions such as, tell me about the people in your life and the support structures, and we hyperemphasize people because we live our lives through this anthropocentric lens.
Right. Right.
Mm. Because that's what our training also hyper focuses on, right? Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And I think you're so right about the restoration of those basic rhythms and timing mechanisms, which don't get repaired through talking about it.
Yeah. Yes. And
Mhm.
so I came to Alaska to run away from the world. Right. But I keep hearing that phrase, how the long arms of Mordor. It's a reference to Lord of the Rings. The long arms of Mordor still reach Alaska. And yet I did have a very blissful extended period of life with no internet, no cell phone, no, like I'd go to the library to use the internet. I'd go use the payphone at the gas station at the end of the hill. Yeah, it was so restorative. And there are times when I wish for those days. Yeah, where I wish I could just put I could just close the blinds and go back to blissfully living, impervious to the rest of the world because the rest of the world didn't intrude upon my world.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
having, yeah, and I'm having that, yeah, that the layers of parallel process and shadow work and whatever metaphor you'd like to give, where I can't unsee what I see now.
And
Mm.
now, do you have a generator so you have power?
We have always had a generator because there was a time when we lived without power.
And that taught you that a generator would be a really good idea.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually somewhat secretly enjoy it when we have. Sorry, I'm laughing now. I actually somewhat secretly enjoy it when there's a blackout, right? Because it will happen every few years where I live, where because there's a change in the climate, right? The snow will actually be wet and heavy, and that will cause for power lines to come down. And historically, uh, it only snows here when the weather warms up. Like it's too cold to snow here. Like that's how cold it is here. And the
Yeah.
air here is so dry that people get nosebleeds from the cold. And yet, in recent years, we've seen a rise in wet snow. Yeah,
Right.
and so we'll then have power outages. And there's a part of me that feels really bad, right, for the folks who don't have or aren't prepared for these power outages. And yet it's something that as more long-time Alaskans we're prepared for. And so there's a part of me that just like, oh, we get to survive, like the sniff of Armageddon, right? We get to survive the sniff of living life like totally on the fringes, and to see if we still have that skill set.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because so few of us do,
Mm,
right?
yes.
But it's really, oh, it's such, I mean, it's a scary skill set to think about acquiring. But 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 it used to be normal life.
Hmm. Yes. Yes. And yet there's also the reality that after 10 days, after 2 weeks, it's like, okay, I'm kind of wanting electricity now. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And at the same time, I do, it's the nostalgia and the bittersweetness of going for backcountry hiking trips and canoeing trips for 2, 3 weeks on end without resupplies, right? Without cell phone, without anything, yeah,
Oh,
other than what we're carrying. And yet only been in recent years that one, I've developed the bittersweetness for it. And two, I've actually come to realize that that's also a refugee trauma reenactment. Like,
mm.
how far can I travel carrying only the things on my back?
Oh, right.
Yeah. I know. Like, what? And I had such significant periods of my life where I was just going from one backcountry trail to another one with a resupply stop.
Yeah,
And also that feeling of reclaiming the vast expanse of the outdoors, which was once the source of such intense trauma for my family.
right,
Yeah,
right, right. Yes. Yeah.
yeah. Mm, yes. And it feels so strange to name that, and to name that I sought after Alaska because a part of me wanted to live in this needless state. Like, I don't need anything, I don't need anyone, right? Like almost like a shriveled state of empty needingness, empty not needing anyone or anything.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because it's safer.
Yeah, because it's safer. And yet my own journey there made me realize that I still need people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 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 have I mean, I would imagine just from knowing you that it's that your ability to be comfortable with people and make them comfortable has just grown exponentially because you make people around you feel comfortable. I hope you're feeling as comfortable as we
Well, it makes me think about Dick Schwartz's phrase, how all parts need expression, right? We
are.
need to fully differentiate before we can integrate, and how that part of me needed full expression to the utmost extreme for that part to actually really have the experience of that. It's okay. It's okay to need. I mean, I can't even say it, but it's like it's okay to need people, and I
Right,
can actually be joyous these days
right. And you
around
get paid to
all.
want people.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. And that needing people used to come from a place of deprivation, and now it can come from a place of wholehearted rejoicing.
right. Right.
Ah.
That's so it's so wonderful. And I think you bring that energy of rejoicing with you,
Yeah.
which is which is wonderful. I, I enjoy rejoicing with you.
Likewise, Jeanette, which is how I can have some grace for the people who are unmasked when they come up and fangirl. It's like it's cool because I can experience the joy of someone wanting and needing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And and you know what they're able to do, which I could never in a million years approach someone that I admired or whose work meant something to me. I couldn't do it. So good for them.
So if we could entertain the idea of the possibility of Janina Fisher just totally cutting loose, and who would those people be?
I mean, I think I'm really the same person. It's
Mm.
just that it's just well, obviously I'm not with people I don't approach. So then I get a little frozen, like, you know, it's it's like, well, they're too big and they're too important. And why would they want me to come and greet them? But of course, I've learned through my own experience, actually, it feels wonderful to be greeted. And it's wonderful. Even if you've heard it a million times before, it feels wonderful when people say, I've been moved by your work. It's meant something to me. Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And I think it says a lot that I'll speak for myself that I'm able to take that in.
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I feel
Mm.
the same way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember a piece of my own work around taking in warm, soft eyes and orienting towards warm, soft eyes, and then orienting and realizing that there are warm, soft eyes in this world.
Right. Even
Yeah.
at big
And
conferences.
yes, yes. And then the gestalt of the figure in the ground is like, did this monumental shift
Yeah.
as I began walking through the world, noticing that there are warm, soft eyes everywhere. And that was huge for someone with a refugee background.
Oh, I can imagine. I can
Mm.
imagine. For me, I had to work on being able to take in the applause. I, I mean, I literally had to open my chest and let it in because my impulse was just kind of armor up and and not take it in. And then I thought, well, that's not really fair to the people who are clapping. That's like rejecting them. So I give a little piece of your own work to do about letting it in.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Oh, and then for me to add the additional layer of my identity, so much of what I didn't realize that I projected into the spaces of conferences is white gaze, right? Because the lights are down or people are looking at me and like people are looking at me and they're still and they're quiet. And for me, this is like, I'm doing it now. It's like, oh, this is the peri-trauma response before someone's about to get really mad, right? Or before they're judging me. They're silently judging me with the, and there's this thing about white gaze where that then gives rise to my performance oriented parts, my approval seeking parts, my parts that don't want you to then punish me afterwards. And for me to then just name that and do my own work around that so that these days when I turn up, I actually notice the warm, soft eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's so important. And I think that's why I think it's so important for someone like me, or somebody who's white, to actually know, soften your gaze. because you don't want I don't want people to feel under the white gaze. I'll have to soften my eyes to make sure I'm communicating. I come in peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And and it's like that. It's and it's always this back and forth of yes and, right? It's a yes. And then that allows me to say some things or present some things that are a little bit non-traditional or out of the box or a lot non-traditional and out of the box. Yeah. And feel sort of sandwiched, like yes, there's the white gaze. I'm feeling you with me. And now let's all go together. Let's all go together. And I hope that people can also hear that in my voice, right? That I'm like, hey, let's come together into this territory that is unusual
Right,
for
right.
our profession. Yeah. Mm.
But obviously our profession needs it, or or you wouldn't be so busy. You wouldn't be getting on the next airplane. Oh my goodness. Oh,
Oh,
I could talk to you for days.
same, same, Janina, same, same.
Oh,
Oh.
this has just been wonderful.